Hello and welcome to The Big Picture with me, Ishan. Tonight we discuss the upholding of the validity of criminal defamation by the Supreme Court. The bench passed the judgment on a batch of petitions filed by Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi, Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal and BJP leader Subramaniam Swamy amongst others. The apex court also observed that the right to freedom of speech is not an absolute right. The centre strongly battled for the laws, saying that they've stood the test of time, while the other side argued that the laws were outmoded. Now, the implications of the judgment certainly would be far-reaching, impacting your and my life as well. So tonight I'm joined by Maneesh Chhibber, Chief of Bureau of the Indian Express, and also Mr. K.C. Mittal, Chief of the Legal Cell of the Congress Party. We'll be joined by other guests, including Aman, Sinha, Spokesperson of the BJP, and KTS Tulsi, Senior Advocate, Supreme Court, and Rajya Sabha MP, also joins us. Maneesh, I'll start with you just to put the entire show in context. As far as this judgment is concerned, now, in terms of the obvious political implications, the persons I mentioned who'd filed this petition, apart from that, how is it going to impact day-to-day life? Does it impact the life of a common man? Does it impact the right to freedom of speech? Just clarify that for us first.
You know, the Supreme Court has held it very categorically that your freedom of speech cannot be used to sully my reputation. That is what the basic tenet of this judgment is. As far as affecting the rights of other citizens, I don't think it goes on to affect our lives in so much as that they have said that it is a criminal offense if you tar somebody's reputation through your actions or words. So in that much they are correct. I may have differences with the reasoning given by the Supreme Court judgment, but I think basically what they have done is they have only reiterated the law as it stands today.
Okay. But the fact that it was being questioned, Mr. Mittal, and questioned by Mr. Rahul Gandhi, amongst others, there was Mr. Kejriwal also, Mr. Subramaniam Swamy. So it seems that the political parties in this country do, to a certain extent, believe that the law is outdated, while the centre, though, says that it is still quite valid.
No. See, it is not the way you are putting it.
Okay.
Leave aside the political parties. It's not a question of political parties. The basic question is about the freedom of expression, one, and the individual right of reputation. What the Supreme Court has done, the Supreme Court has tried to strike a balance between the two. Because both the rights are important. One can't take away the other one. So they have to go and sail together.
Okay.
And that's how the court has tried to strike a balance to say that you have all the rights, but you can't defame somebody. Of course, yes, you have a freedom of expression. You can say anything, but you can't malign somebody. That's a different, altogether, I think, proposition which anybody and everybody would accept. The question was different as what you are trying to put it. Now supposing if the court has, what the court has done, there may be some cases, of course it will depend from case to case,
right,
whether what has happened and what has not happened. So you can't generalize the whole thing. But the most important part of the judgment, as I see, apart from the balancing the two, is the onus and obligation put on the magistrate at the time of summoning. He has to be more careful. The onus, he has to see the material evidence.
All right, so important point you raise over there about the onus on the magistrate, that perhaps that will lead to, that will address the fear of a lot of frivolous cases of criminal defamation being filed. Mr. Tulsi, would you share that view as far as this judgment is concerned?
Yes. I believe that by what the Supreme Court means by saying that the magistrates have to be more careful is that to examine the facts, and if it falls in any of the exceptions, there are about 10 exceptions, that truth is an exception, for instance, and it is said in its bona fide. If it is clearly a fact which has been published for 50 years or 100 years in several history books, and you state that, it won't be an offense. So magistrates should be more careful whether the allegations in the complaint fall in any of the exceptions. I think that this is a correct judgment, because reputations take a lifetime to build. And in India, people attack you without any basis, outright falsehood, many a time malicious, rivals, political rivals, they make allegations. Now, if you think that you are justified, then prove the truth. You can't ruin people's reputation overnight.
All right.
The kind of technology that is available today, you can actually ruin a reputation in 24 hours. Now, either you prove the truth in a court of law or you go to jail.
All
This
right,
is
fair
the
enough.
only
I think it's an
safeguard
important
that
question,
an individual have to
especially the
protect
parties involved
to
in
protect his
this.
reputation.
Right. Maneesh, I'll just come to you. I want to bring in Aman Sinha, national spokesperson of the BJP. He's also joining us. He's also a lawyer. Aman, coming across to you, the fact is that, as Mr. Tulsi was pointing out, that this judgment would really make everybody more careful, especially our political leaders, from making allegations against each other. And, I mean, this has been happening across the board. You see the petitions, the people who challenge the petition as well, and they're all political opponents. But on the other side as well, I mean, does this make political parties more careful?
Well, it should, and this current trend of making some baseless, wild allegations, I think this needs to be curtailed from our polity. It doesn't serve anybody. It doesn't serve any purpose at all. But as far as the today's judgment on Section 499 and Section 500 of IPC is concerned, the Supreme Court has upheld its constitutional validity. There was, this issue was lying in suspense for some time, so it's good that there is clarity on this issue. And Supreme Court, I believe, has very categorically and correctly upheld that the Section 499 and Section 500, indeed, they do not violate any provisions of the Constitution, and right to freedom of speech and expression is also not an absolute right, and the Constitution itself imposes certain reasonable restrictions. So I believe it's a remarkable judgment by Justice Deepak Mishra and Justice P.C. Pant, and I think it needs to be acknowledged and appreciated by everybody. We welcome this judgment.
All right, Maneesh, you wanted to come in. I also want to add the fact that as far as freedom of expression is concerned, now recently there have been examples where, the lines have been questioned about how much is really freedom of speech and how much isn't. I mean, the sedition also comes into the picture when political or our national discourse we talked about over the past few months. So how does this judgment impact that?
First of all, I think too much reliance has been paid by the Supreme Court bench on the wisdom of our judiciary, on the wisdom of the subordinate judiciary. If you are going to call upon a member of the subordinate judiciary, basically a munsif or a magistrate, to decide, whether whatever has been said by an accused, a person accused of under these two sections, falls within the ambit of those 10 exceptions, and if it does not fall in the ambit of those 10 sections, then only you go ahead. This is something which is, I would say, it's a rota thing. In every Supreme Court judgment involving criminal matters, they will always put in this line that, we leave it to the wisdom of the magistrate. So if the magistrates, and I'm sure the judiciary will forgive me for saying this, if the magistrates were so competent and were actually using their wisdom, we would not have had so many cases running into crores. I am not talking about lakh. Also, people, as a newspaper, the Indian Express has taken a very strong line that these two sections
Ishan.
need to go. The reason being, if you are a public figure, somebody like Rahul Gandhi, Subramanian Swamy, Mr. Prime Minister Modi, they are public figures. They have lent themselves open to all kinds of accusations. If somebody, if the common man believes that there is something wrong with what they are doing, he has every right to criticize. Now what is happening is, for everything that I say or you say, they can take us to court, and these are people who have deep pockets.
Right. Yeah, that's a worry. Isn't that a significant worry? I'll come to you, Mr. Mittal. Mr. Aman Sinha, Mr. Jaitley, of course,
Ishan.
is one of the people who has filed a criminal defamation charge against Arvind Kejriwal and colleagues of his. So your party's stand on that, because as the fear Maneesh expressed right now of ordinary citizens, I mean, we've had in our country instances when sedition and other charges have been slapped. So criminal defamation then I think would be an easier way to just intimidate people. Is that a fear?
No, that may not be a fair criticism really. And let me say, my friend, the point that he was making, there's absolute freedom for criticizing somebody justifiably. And, as far as this government is concerned, we have been facing our adversaries. However, the fact of the matter is that there is a clear distinction between justified fair criticism and just indulging into blatantly defaming anybody.
That is the point
if
of
somebody is
contention.
making wild, baseless allegations,
All right, wild, baseless
which he
allegations.
cannot.
If I can just respond to what Mr. Sinha said.
Right.
No. The point of my opinion is absolutely clear that there is a
Okay,
very
fair
clear
enough. You
distinction.
made your opinion
Ishan,
clear. Let Maneesh
as
respond.
far as
No, my objection is not.
there is a very clear
I
distinction
believe this
as far
government
as
and like
fair
every other
criticism
government.
and
All right,
and
Mr. Sinha, let
defamation is
Maneesh respond,
concerned,
please.
and this government is open to fair criticism.
Yeah,
There is no
I
any
totally
difficulty
agree
about
with
it.
you. Sir, you are as open to criticism as the governments before you and as the governments after you will be. That we all know. What I am trying to say here is that if you leave it to the magistrate to decide what is fair criticism, by then, I would have run out of money.
Okay.
Whereas people in power, Rahul Gandhi does not need to pay his lawyers. He has senior lawyers like Mr. Mittal at his disposal. Whereas I would need lawyers right up to the Supreme Court. Can I hire somebody like Mr. Mittal? No, I cannot. So by the time, and mind you, in high profile cases, the magistrate, I have seen this, I have covered the courts, magistrate, in 9 out of 10 cases, he will not use his wisdom, or he will let the matters, pass on.
Okay.
So that way you are destroying me, whereas the reputation of somebody else.
No, but Zishan, may I respond?
Okay, Aman, I'll let you respond, but I want to get in Mr. Tulsi also, because the fact of the matter, Tulsi, Mr. Tulsi over here
making
is
such,
also. Aman, I'll come to you.
Making such general presumptions.
I'll come to you, Aman. I'll let you respond,
Just a
Mr.
short
Tulsi. I
point.
just wanted to ask
Making
you.
such general presumptions may not be correct, Zishan.
Okay.
And if you can trust a magistrate with deciding, cases of capital punishment and several other, important or cases related to heinous crimes, why can he not decide on this question?
All right, fair enough. But Mr. Tulsi, the point I would also want to bring into the discussion over here is the fact that it takes a long time to settle a case. And that was one of the arguments that was put forth, that in India, the criminal defamation case, it takes years and years. Elsewhere, where similar laws have been enacted, it is settled in a time-bound manner. So what would your comments on that be, as well as joining the other points about me being made in the debate?
You see, no, what has been said in the judgment is that civil defamation case takes too long. If you file a case for damages, it will take 10 years, 20 years. You can actually write it in your will that your son or grandson will take care of this case and he will be entitled to the damages if at all they are awarded. You see, because civil cases take too long, therefore the need for retention of the criminal offence, this can be some deterrent, that if you are speaking outrageous lies with malicious intent, you need to go to jail or prove the contents. Now, for instance, if you take the recent example where Mr. Kejriwal is going hammer and tongs against the degrees of the Prime Minister, how do you make such categorical statement that this is forged? And if you make a categorical statement, you are impugning the character of a person.
Okay.
And you will have to prove the truth of the charge. And if you are not able to prove the truth, on what basis did you say that it's forged? Merely on suspicion? Merely on an opinion? So you need to protect even public figures. Public figures are not open season for being called names day in and day out. Everyone has to be a little more civil and careful about how much you can say, there can be a fair criticism,
Okay.
but there can't be outrageous lies, manufactured lies. So people need
But
to be
Mr.
protected.
Tulsi, I
Even
mean,
public figures need
and I
to
want
be
to know
protected.
Mr. Mittal's stand, because in opposition, political parties often allege that, we have the basis to these allegations, the government should investigate it, but in such a case, an allegation could become criminal defamation in your party.
You see, you are only focusing on the political parties. No, the issue doesn't confine to political parties. Most of the petitions were by media. It more arises in the case of media. Every day you find articles, one or the other, then the prosecution takes place under 499 and 500.
Right.
Therefore, out of those, I think 100 odd petitions, most of the petitions were by media only. The basic fundamental question is that at the drop of hat, you go to the court and file a case under 499 and prosecute. That is where some check has been put by the court.
Okay.
You can't just go and file and then someone takes, you are summoned. You see, one may raise one or two questions. Like Mr. Tulsi has rightly pointed, there may be extreme cases where prosecution has to take place in a criminal court. But there may be cases where it may not really be necessary that all cases should be prosecuted.
Okay.
So, defamation, what exactly, there can be 2, 3, 4, there has to be some kind of categorization which is, and the court has also said, as far as this is concerned, you may be intolerant. That doesn't mean it becomes a defamation. The court has to see that.
Okay.
Therefore, the onus, that's why I said in the beginning, now the responsibility is of the magistrate. Now, so far as my friend Aman Sinha said about the death sentence and all that, that is the job of the Sessions Court. These prosecutions take place in the magistrate's court. There now with the new law, basically the not exactly the guidelines, but the measures which have been suggested, the onus put on the magistrate. He has now to see that what is the nature of the statement,
Okay.
whether it amounts to defamation or not. So all that part now will have some restraint.
Which Maneesh is saying that the magistrates are already overworked and
But Ishan,
already
can I add
there is more than enough on the plate. But Maneesh, what Mr. Mittal was also pointing to is a very important point about the media and about attempts to muzzle the media or, not be happy with a certain point of view that's been put forth in the media. Is there a fear with this that the media will be indulging in perhaps self-censorship when it wants to go all out?
I don't think any respectable media house would like to indulge in self-censorship. But at the same time, the caveat is that media houses also have limited budget. They we are not a flourishing industry, and we don't have the deep pockets that politicians have. Some politicians have, if I can say. So we are also afraid. That is why whenever we publish something against anybody, we cross-check. Recently, we did this huge series on Panama papers. Right. We worked on those papers for 8 months. We've cross-checked, verified, re-verified everything. But even then, I am sure there will be people who will drag us to court. So we cannot stop that. And, mind you, since I come from a legal background, having covered the courts, I don't have too much faith in the wisdom of a magistrate to decide whether whatever I published was bona fide or not, whether it was truthful or not. He will take his own time. By that time, if I have to deal with 10 cases in 10 cities, just remember the amount of pressure you are putting on the media.
Right, and that's an important point, Mr. Tulsi. We've seen this happen at many places, that you'll make a speech somewhere and you'll have a case filed somewhere completely different, and in that you'll be asked to appear. So, I mean, it could happen to Rahul Gandhi, it could happen to Arvind Kejriwal, it could happen to a host of other political leaders. But if it happens to me, if it happens to Maneesh Chhibber, we're in a soup. What do we do?
You see, Supreme Court in this judgment has said that, well, when there are multiple complaints filed in different places, there is a remedy. You can get them consolidated. So they say that may be a ground for quashing or something. But each case will have to be decided on its own facts. But what I want to say is that Maneesh is right what he says about the media, The print media particularly is extremely cautious about whatever they are writing. They will scrutinize everything and have the basis for being able to say something. But electronic media and the social media are the real danger zones. We have seen riots take place on account of a doctored video. Doctored video goes wild, and
But Mr. Tulsi, wouldn't that come under, I mean, aren't there enough provisions in the law to deal with that separately rather than defamation per se?
No. Many a times when a more serious crime has been committed, of course there are other remedies. But many a times where you can nip it in the bud, at that time you can use only this provision. And that is the reason why it has been upheld. It's a reasonable restriction on the right of fair speech, and we will have to evolve a jurisprudence even for the social media, that they will be answerable for the kind of things that they say. And there has to be some due diligence before wild allegations are made or wild claims are made, which may have consequences for various people. So this is a developing jurisprudence, and the technology is thrown new challenges
Aman
to this. We'll have to deal with it as the time passes.
Aman Sinha wanted to come in. Aman, sorry, I've been making you wait for this long. But very quickly, I just also wanted to add, that as Mr. Tulsi was pointing out, social media, that is where a lot of allegations have taken place. As far as what the government's thinking goes with social media, are we thinking about, ensuring that the defamation or, that thought process is being actively used to monitor social media?
No, first of all, let me respond to what my friend Mr. Mittal was saying. I was only underscoring the point that we need to trust our subordinate judiciary. If they can decide cases of all nature and seriousness, obviously they can decide this issue also. And if there is any miscarriage of justice, anybody can go up in appeal. So obviously, that cannot be a ground for assailing this section. Apart from that, if my friend Maneesh says that they cross-check all the facts and thereafter they come forward with a story, obviously then there is no case for defamation obviously would be made out, because they have some basis to their story. So that also is misplaced. As far as your question on social media is concerned, this is a judgment of the Supreme Court of India. It applies to all forms and streams of the media. And, we have nothing further to add as far as that is concerned. But, it is the spirit of the judgment is that we all have to be more responsible when we are, as Mr. Tulsi was pointing out, some baseless allegation was made against no less a person than Prime Minister of this country. And, it went on, going on and on. And, when everything was brought forward in public domain, then also this kind of malicious campaign goes on. So I'm just pointing out that, this is the kind of, wild, baseless allegation and this kind of exercise which goes on to our politics these days. It is something which is disconcerting, and I think the Supreme Court has come out with a judgment which covers and addresses all the aspects of this issue.
All right. Mr. Mittal, very quickly, as far as next steps of the Congress party, because Mr. Rahul Gandhi's petition was also among, I mean, you're saying that don't make it a political question, but as far as the party's next steps are concerned in this matter.
No, let me tell you one important aspect which I think we are missing. What is the main reason? If a person is summoned, he has to appear in the court, keep on appearing, unless exempted, he has to submit the bond, it takes years and years in the prosecution when it concludes. That was the major reason why even media, a section of media was also reluctant to write articles and come out openly. Why should I face the court? Why should I face the trial for years? Yeah. That was the major reason why it was said that the defamation has a chilling effect on the expression of freedom, right of freedom of expression. That was the main argument which was advanced. I tell you, but this judgment perhaps will have some restraint on frivolous kind of petitions, applications for defamation and summoning. It will save something Of course, there should be a further remedy also, which is not available so far, neither under this judgment or otherwise in law. There should be prompt remedy. Somebody is doing it genuinely. Somebody is making a proper statement. Even media is writing an article. Why should he be harassed? Keep on waiting. He should have a prompt remedy.
All right, so, final word to you, Maneesh. Do we see more cases in the court with criminal defamation with this, or do we see a little bit of sanity in terms of the allegations that keep flying thick and fast?
You know, I don't think there will be any effect. You wait and watch. You know, my prediction is that the cases will continue. You know, more cases will happen. Mr. Subramanian Swamy, he likes to play the victim very often. He will continue to, use all sorts of words and languages, and people like Mr. Modi, they will also use whatever suits them. Mr. Rahul Gandhi will also use all kinds of languages.
Why should you selectively point out Mr. Subramanian Swamy?
Sir, we'll have that discussion very soon. Okay. So, what I am trying to say is
The
that
petition
this
of
judgment,
Mr. Rahul Gandhi and Mr.
is a
Kejriwal was dismissed
very
today.
disturbing judgment. I hope, sometime later, sometime very soon, a larger bench goes into this issue. And
important point you raise over there that perhaps needs a relook. That is what Maneesh Chhibber is pointing to. We'll have to wait and see how this matter progresses, but I'll have to end over here. Time's up. Mr. Mittal, Maneesh Chhibber, Mr. Tulsi and Aman Sinha, thank you very much for coming in and joining us on The Big Picture tonight. That's all from us. Goodbye.